So welcome to the outlet. Today we're here with Ripples the Clown, and Ripples has a real name. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Uh, what? No, I got bubbles. You're gonna have a mess on your table. Sorry, bud.
Uh, that's okay. Yeah, Ripples the Clown, Bubbles the Clown. One of them.
It's Ripples.
It's Ripples. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
another one named Bubbles. I met her.
Really?
Yeah, that's what you should think. Real name is Reese Kerstetter, and been a member here in Roseburg area for since 2010. Went to college here. Ran a couple of businesses here.
Very nice.
Yeah,
What businesses did you manage in the area?
I was a manager for Beds for Less, which is a subsidiary of Ashley Home Store. Beds for Less Incorporated out of Medford. But I did that up until 2012. Managed that store for him. It was a good time. It was rough during the housing crisis in 2008, 9, 10. It was pretty rough, but
Oh, I bet. I bet. So I guess one of the, bigger questions I'd have just to start this off. So, why a clown?
well, it's kind of a little bit of a long story. So we bought our house in Drain in 2010, and it pretty much wiped us out financially to get into that house. And so we were getting food weekly from the local food pantry, and we wanted to be able to give back because we're just not really the kind of people that like to take without giving back somehow. So we had noticed that they have a little county fair in Drain. It's called the North Douglas County Fair. It's actually the longest running free fair in the state of Oregon. We're celebrating 102 years this year, consecutive.
Wow.
So, and what we did, just kind of teach our kids, how to volunteer and stuff like that, is we set up and made little homemade game booths for the kids to come and play. And we didn't charge very much. We got a bunch of prizes donated for the winners, and all our proceeds went back to the food pantry. And my wife was painting faces, and I was juggling and dressed outstandingly, but not a clown yet, just kind of a carnival barker style. And so I think it was our third year. I told my wife, I said, why don't you just paint me like a clown and let's see what happens? And it really took off. The kids in the area just really loved it. Next year, I had several kids that had remembered me and were excited to see me again. And then the year after that, there was even more of them. And I was starting to get feedback from the community, and it really felt really good. So I did that for like 10 years, basically, up into during the pandemic, 2022. And there was a group of theater people that had been brought into the fair during that time. I'd also kind of ran the fair. I was the chairman for a while. My wife was doing the marketing and layout for their advertising and stuff like that.
Okay.
And let's see, 3 years ago, so 22 or 23, they nominated me for Grand Marshal, which was very surprising and very much an honor because up until that point, I had only seen local names, old names, local long family line type of people being nominated, and usually much older people being
Right.
nominated as Grand Marshal. So being an outsider in this town, you know how small towns are. You're an outsider for most of your life.
Right. Yeah. Right. Where'd this guy come from?
Yeah. So being nominated for that was really amazing. And then this theater group that was involved, they kept telling me how awesome it was what I was doing, and it just really made me feel good. And at the end of that fair, somebody in that group had handmade a thank you card and had gone around to a whole bunch of different people in the fair and got it signed by all these different people. And you can goosebumps just talking about it. It hit me really, really, really hard.
Wow.
Really affected me a lot. And so between that fair and the next fair, I went to one of the local people and I had my tie dye done, made, which I'm super proud of. And
It's a great look. Really. Yeah.
but I still hadn't had a name. You know, Ripples hadn't been born yet. And I went to that fair, and then right after the fair, there was a hippie festival up north of Springfield, northeast of Springfield. And when I say hippie, I mean these were traditional. These were guys that were with the Merry Pranksters, were with Ken Kesey, you know, pranksters,
Yeah.
hippies,
Okay.
and they kept calling me Wavy Gravy. And I'm like,
Wavy gravy.
I knew that they weren't being mean because they're just not that kind of people.
Right.
But I went home after that festival and I started researching who Wavy Gravy was. And it turns out he was a clown that followed the Grateful Dead, but his whole purpose in clown life was feeding people.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, and this, again, this struck me like, holy mackerel. This guy's like basically the same mindset as I am. You know, he's done a lot more than me, but, you know, the whole getting into clowning and all that is really aligned. And then I'm not a big Grateful Dead fan, but the Wavy Gravy had followed the Grateful Dead through his whole career. And so one of my favorite songs from the Grateful Dead is Ripple.
Ah, okay. I'm starting to see it coming together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I chose the name Ripple. I feel like that song really encompasses kind of my version of what clown is.
Okay.
So if you don't know the song, go listen to it. Pay attention to the lyrics because it's really poignant.
Right.
Even though it's just a kind of feels like a fun song, it really has serious meaning.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't think I've heard the song, but I'll have to take a closer listen to it.
It's a wonderful song. And so then I became Ripples and it's grown from there. Again, people expect me every year at that little local fair and I don't charge them. I do that fair. That's home, you know.
Right.
This last year or this year, this spring, I spent all last year trying to build my name up, doing fairs, festivals for free, just to get the name out there, try to get content, stuff like that. And this spring, I went to Boston for the World Clown Association's annual convention, which is a week of classes, learning, networking with clowns from all over the world. So we had 160, I think they said, registered, but then a whole bunch showed up and what came and went throughout the week. So at any time, there's probably 200 different clowns there. They come from Guatemala, from Peru, from
Wow.
Japan, from London, from Canada. It was
Clown Fest, huh?
it was amazing, amazing time. I learned a lot. And I learned also that a lot of what I was doing already is stuff that the rest of the clown world is just kind of starting to come into,
Really?
which really surprised me. Like Bubbles, for example.
Yeah.
There's a lot, that's really a growing industry. There's a lot of bubble artists now, but it hadn't been really associated with clowns at all until real recently, last year or two, I guess. In fact, they only had clown bubble classes in the last 2 years. So that's really been a big thing. I was able to step up. Their teacher for the bubble class didn't show up, so I helped a lot with that.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah,
That's
it
a
was
nice
pretty cool.
opportunity.
Pretty cool. So hopefully, maybe next year I'll get with my sponsor and show up to that convention and teach.
Yeah,
That'd be awesome.
that would be awesome. So far, what do you feel like is your favorite part about going to the event as Ripples or any events?
You know, it's funny. I love the kids and I love the feeling that kids remember me from year to year and stuff like that. But kids are pretty simple as far as entertaining them goes and making friends with them go.
Right.
And they're always around, no matter where I'm at or what I'm doing. My favorite part is dealing with some of the older people.
Okay.
And usually they're senior citizens, but not always. And they'll pull me away from a crowd of kids to tell me their story and give me a hug. And I don't know, it does something inside of me that just
Yeah.
feeds me, you know?
Right. That's interesting that they do that. There's some kind of like underlying connection that they build with you because of what you're doing.
Yeah, it has something to do with the creative, I think. I don't know. I've also noticed that same kind of reaction from other artists. So I was at a music festival last year. It was adult music festival. So there was a very few kids there, but lots of adults. And these different bands were playing. And one of them really struck me. They had invited up their producer, I think is what she was. She's like 80 and obviously hadn't been on stage for a while, but was a singer. And as a just a shout out to her, they brought her up on stage and let her sing a couple of songs. And it was incredible. She just completely poured herself into it. And you could just feel, how much it meant to her to be on stage again. And I went up to her, and there's a whole line of people waiting to talk to her. And I waited in line and I went up and talked to her. And I was just like, hey, I really liked what you were doing up there. I could feel your passion and it just really meant a lot. And she literally broke down in tears
Really?
and hugged me. And it struck me really hard because I imagine that this woman has probably heard people tell her that she was great thousands of times. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
who knows how many hundreds of times at least. But for some reason, coming from a clown had this extra large impact. And those kind of things are what really make me continue doing this.
Yeah. I don't know how many people out there have that ability to see other people's passion, honestly. That's not a comment I hear often. And usually when somebody tells me that they see the passion behind what I'm doing, they are a particular person.
Yeah, I hadn't really considered that. It's something that I've always kind of had, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe it was trained into me because a lot of my work life was in sales, customer service, and I got into that whole industry when it was still really a profession. Furniture salespeople, suit and tie. We went through heavy training. Shortly, a few years into that, I started to see more and more young people being hired in, and they're dressing more casually, and they're not getting the training, and they're being paid lower commissions or even just hourly instead of commissions. And kind of that fell away. But I think that training really helped me a lot. Taught me how to see people differently,
Yeah.
how to read their feelings,
Right.
you know.
So it's like a degree of empathy. It's kind
Yeah,
of like baked into the whole thing and
right.
into yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's huge. It's a huge quality to have, especially as someone it seems like your job would be to essentially make people happy,
Yeah.
And I mean, so what does that mean to you to be able to provide that to people?
It's almost like a drug.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll go to the events or sometimes I won't go to an event or be thinking I'm not going to an event. I'm down, not feeling very good about life. In fact, this happened a few years ago. In fact, this happened now that I think about it, the year that I got that thank you card. I wasn't going to go. I was like, I'm tired. I've been working a lot. My kids were hitting that 18, 19, and we were kind of not getting along real well sometimes. I was just feeling really down. I'm like, I'm not going to do it this year. My wife was like, yeah, you got to. She's like, I see how you are when you get done with this. You got to go do it. They're waiting for you. You know they are. And I was like, all right, fine. And I kind of begrudgingly put on the costume and went. And the story that I just told you about the card and stuff happened. And when I got done with that event, it was like my mood was 100 times better for weeks afterwards. It just like fed me. It's like I don't really know how to put it into the right words, I don't think. But it really completely changed me and held me for weeks. Not like an instant thing that just makes you feel better for right now. It was
Yeah.
better.
Right.
And it's like that every time I go out, even if I don't really have a really emotional connection during any particular event, I feel like totally different when I come home from them. I've got more energy. My body hurts less.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's incredible.
Right. Well, you're helping people.
Yeah,
You know,
well, and
you're
it's helping
helping,
me.
yeah, and it's helping you back. And that's huge. I think I know what you're talking about because I kind of feel like that from helping people.
Yeah,
It just like it fills my cup
yeah,
basically, and
yeah,
that'll last a while.
yeah,
And I think what's really kind of addicting about it is that feeling,
yeah,
like this elevated feeling. And it's not like an ego thing. It's like
no,
a I made a difference
yeah,
kind of thing, and I'm proud of that.
and it's not like drugs because, when you drugs, you're always chasing that original high.
Right.
This isn't like that because every time I get that feeling again, there's no chasing that original high because every time it's a little different, but it's just as powerful.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's huge. That's a huge thing. I think it's really overlooked.
Yeah, I get people all the time, that ask me what I do, and I tell them because I, you know, obviously, a lot of times people just laugh because they think I'm joking.
Yeah. Well, you are a clown, so So
Very few people understand it.
yeah. No, I can see that. What would you say has been the hardest part? Like that maybe, you wouldn't have expected kind of going into this and going on this journey.
The hardest part, which it was kind of both good and bad, but it was hard. There was a young lady that I met early on in my clowning, and she was really a staple. Every year she was there, but she was disabled. And I don't really know what the disability was, but whatever it was caused her to stay very, very small. So even at like 9, 10, 11 years old, she looked like she was 4 or 5 and had the kind of dexterity of a 4 or 5 year old. And kind of watching year after year that her growing and seeing her friends grow, but her kind of being left behind. That's that was kinda hard. That was and I still see her pretty often, and now she's still that little tiny thing and still has a lot of the personality of a very young child, but she's trying to match what her friends are doing, so, now the clown's not quite so cool and,
Oh,
you
okay.
know, and that's kinda hard, but gotta expect some of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So like one of the hardest things about it is not even something that you went through personally. It's like watching
Yeah,
what somebody else is going through.
and I think it comes back to that whole empath thing.
Yeah.
Because I really do kind of feel that. It's not just noticing it. It's
Right.
like I can kind of feel it.
Yeah.
And so when somebody's really struggling, sometimes I feel that struggle. And I think that helps me know how to bring people out, even for just a couple of moments. But still, I'm feeling the downness about these things sometimes. That can be kind of hard.
Yeah. I have the same kind of problem. It could be considered a problem depending on the circumstance. Sometimes it can bring you down and it's like you really want to do something to help. And sometimes you just can't,
You just can't. Yeah.
and that makes it kind of hard. So was there ever a moment that you thought about quitting?
Yeah. When my kids started moving out, and it was really a toss up because it put me in a position in life where I really had to kind of try to figure out who I was again. I'd been dad, I'd been husband, I'd been provider for a long, long time, since I was a teenager. And now I'm in this place where my kids are grown, they're moving out. I'm still working my butt off like I had always. And I'm just trying to figure out what am I going to do with this? Who am I? And I realized that one of the driving factors in my life is festivals. I've been in a lot of festivals all the way back to my early teens in the 1990s. I grew up in Alaska and bluegrass music festivals were really a big thing back then. And I just loved them. Then I got involved with some other groups that did a lot of different types of festivals, Renaissance festivals, living history type festivals, art festivals. And I just really have been drawn to these throughout my life. And so I was like, me and my wife had always talked about being vendors or something at these just so that we could go.
Right.
I was like, this clown thing is pretty great.
Yeah. Get some backstage passes there.
Yeah, it really. And so, my wife still doesn't quite get it. She's They're like, well, I thought we were going to be vendors and stuff. And I'm like, well, yeah, but this is just added,
Yeah.
with the clown. Maybe I don't have to pay for a vendor space. Maybe I'm getting paid by them and getting a vendor space,
Right.
you know,
Yeah, you don't have to stay in the same spot for the whole show, so you can kind of slowly wander up closer to the stage. Yeah.
which I do a lot of. I wander festivals, I'll drag around my wagon full of toys and just draw people into playing, whether they're kids, adults, it doesn't matter,
Right.
you know.
I think that's so needed. Like, there's such a lack of things like that. You just don't see it that
Yeah.
often.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's fun too. Adults, they forget how to be a kid. They forget what it was like to just stop for a minute, play.
Yeah.
Or they think that getting on their video games is playing, or getting drunk is playing. And that's not play in my mind. That's
Yeah.
something else entirely. That it can be entertaining, it could be fun, whatever. It's not play.
I agree. I agree.
And so getting people to slow down for a moment. If you don't mind, I got another story about an adult that affected me.
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
was busking. And if you don't know what busking is, it's kind of like street performing for tips, right? So I was at the Lane County Holiday Market and busking there, and I'm inside doing my thing and juggling. I'm trying to get people involved, and I see this guy comes out from another door, and he goes and he leans against the wall, and I could just tell, he's waiting for his wife, or maybe his wife and his kids. I don't know, but he's done. But he's got to wait for them, and he's just like, ugh. And so I get his attention. I'm like, hey, come on over. He's like, no, no, no. I'm like, come on, man, you need to do something. You're obviously bored waiting. I was like, you must have, you know, done juggling or played with yo-yos or something when you were a kid. He's like, yeah, it's been a long time, but I did used to do yo-yos. And so I finally got him over to the thing, and he's, trying to figure out the yo-yo. And then we move on to some juggling. And before you know it, like almost 30 minutes has gone by. This guy's been playing and we're having a good time. And his wife shows up and he's just got this big face, big smile on his face. And he's juggling. He's like, look at this. And she's like, thank you. And dumped $20 in my tip jar right there.
Oh,
And I'm
that's
just like, yes,
that's awesome.
that's a win.
Yeah, that's a huge unlock. Wow.
It's those moments.
Yeah. Yeah. To be able to provide those, I mean, that's got to do a lot, inside yourself. Just like reaffirming that this is what you're supposed to be doing, like
Yeah.
having those moments.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of keeps the whole thing rolling.
Yeah, well, and there's moments throughout my regular life that happen that just kind of reaffirm too.
Yeah.
Just little things that don't necessarily make a lot of sense. Like I was at a thrift store about 6 months ago. I like thrift shopping, garage sailing, stuff like that. And there's a book there called Across America by Kelly. Oh, what's his name? I don't have my phone. I can't look up his name, but it's autographed. He's like the most famous clown in American history.
Huh.
Gosh, why can't I think of his name now? It's how embarrassing. Anyway, it was autographed. So this book is worth $200-300 easy with his autograph, and he's passed now and everything. So
Wow. What a find.
I pick it up for like $7 at a thrift store.
Wow.
What are the odds?
Yeah.
Just
Miracles happen there sometimes.
it seems silly and it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's kind of reaffirmation for me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. What are the odds? Honestly, those little moments, they stack up.
Yeah,
They
do.
stack up. And I have a lot of those too, doing what I'm doing. And it always surprises me. It always catches me off guard
Yeah.
when it's like, okay,
You're like, why?
yeah,
How?
maybe I am in the right spot. Because I mean, the doubt does creep in,
Absolutely.
from several different areas, and it can eat at you. So when the universe is on your side
Yeah.
and giving these little clues and pushing you along, man, it feels good.
Yeah.
It feels good.
Yeah.
So another question I had for you: how many people have you scared away?
Very few. I almost never meet people that are actually afraid of clowns.
Interesting.
Well, at least not afraid of me.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of people that say they're afraid of clowns. And I think a lot of times it's kind of more like a talking point for them. It's
Yeah.
you know,
It's like the first thing some people think of when you talk about a clown. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, what about the people that are terrified of him?
and people ask me that all the time, constantly, but I've never had somebody scream and run away.
Yeah.
I've a few times I've had people kind of walk a big circle around me. but never really afraid.
Yeah. One of these days. Yeah, I
I
feel
kind of hope.
you kind of right. Like, what kind of clown are you if you haven't terrified at least one person? You know?
Yeah. I had this one little girl. She was that other little girl's friend,
Okay.
and she was pretty afraid. It took her almost an entire day to warm up to me.
Wow.
And it was pretty cool too because she was like hiding behind her mom and then so her friend who knew me and looked forward to coming and playing with me every year, she's like, "Well, we'll go play and maybe she'll come around, you know." And so we're sitting over there playing with my toys and stuff like that. And she kind of works her way in eventually over a couple of different hours. And at the end of the day, she's like, "You know, I was scared of clowns, but I got to spend my birthday with a clown." I hadn't even known it was her birthday. Yeah, it's
Oh,
just
that's
like
cool. Wow.
it's those little moments where just
Yeah. That makes it complete. That's interesting. Yeah, that's because that's I hear it all the time,
and I'm
they're
not
like
like most clowns, you know, I don't have the full white face with the
right.
kind of sharp eye points. You know,
Yeah.
I kind of try to make myself look a little bit more like, you know, like one of the dancing bears from the dead, you know,
Yeah.
almost kind of fluffy and friendly. And
Right.
that's kind of the style I'm going after. It's kind of hard to be scared of that, I think.
Yeah. Wow. So, what does success for Ripples look like in the future?
Honestly, at this stage of my life, success is paying my bills, keeping myself fed.
Yeah.
You know, everybody talks about getting rich, and I chased that for quite a while. You know, we only live once. And I've come to the conclusion that I think God put us here to experience life. Not much of a religious person, but I think God put us here to experience moral life. And money is an experience, it's not the same thing.
Right.
So if I can feed myself and my wife and keep our house paid for, and I feel like I'm being very successful
Yeah.
because the joy that comes from it all.
Yeah. I feel kind of the same way about that. It's not all about the money, really. Living within your means is an important part of this, of course, but being able to just have that baseline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just I just want to be me.
Right.
I just want to have fun. I want to make people smile. If I can help them in some way, I want to do that. You know, I'm kind of looking to hire some people here right now. In fact, I've got one guy that's kind of testing the waters with me. And my whole goal, even with them, success for that is just, can I pay them? Can I make it worth their time? That's success.
Yeah.
You know, if I can bring others up, then I'm winning.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
Yeah. That's huge to be able to do that.
yeah,
And that ties right back into the whole empathy thing and like why you even are doing this in the first place. Bringing people up around you seems to be a running theme, whether that's giving them a job or just making their day a little bit better or making somebody smile, providing any kind of entertainment in today's world. And, there's a lot of things going on in the world right now.
yeah.
And so just having the ability and capacity to do that in the midst of everything, I mean, I think that's invaluable.
You know, one of the other things that makes me feel successful is, especially when I'm in clown, is getting along with people that might normally hate me.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and you see this a lot, and I don't want to get too political. I don't like the whole politics thing, but I've had a lot of people that disagree with my politics and threw me away. And I've never thrown somebody away for their politics. I don't care who, I don't care. As long as your politics doesn't mean that you're hurting people purposely, we have too little control for it to be that important.
Yeah.
And, but I've had some people that if they, on either side, if they knew what I believe politically, they might not like me at all.
Right.
And so being able to break those barriers,
Yeah.
but
It's interesting to dislike someone because of what they believe.
it's,
And
that's
sometimes what they believe is really just an artifact of how they grew up,
yeah,
what they were around, the people they were around, what those people believed. And it's like it doesn't like what you said, like if they're not out there hurting someone with whatever they believe or agree or disagree with, like, what's the harm?
Yeah.
Because if you are able to push past those political beliefs on whatever side, like the person underneath all that could still be your best friend. So it's like just cut that part out and everything
Normal.
is normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of just like a disruptor,
Yeah.
It's just a
It's a
disruptor.
division. And
Yeah.
yeah, in my mind, the only difference between me and any other person on the planet, the only real difference is our experiences.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
I got to ask you a question or
Oh,
two.
not me.
Why did you start this? What's your story? I know that's not
That's a,
supposed to be about you, but I know everybody wants to know.
yeah. Well, that's a good question. I started this for a really similar reason that you did. I kind of saw this gap and it looked like needed filled. I like helping people is really how this kind of derived from. So I ended up helping a small business for about 2 years, with or without pay. I was there day in and day out, trying to make it work for this guy for his success
Yeah.
ultimately. And if I know if he won, that I would win too. And even if I didn't, like, the value that I would have gotten for making somebody else successful is equally important to me.
Yeah.
So I stuck that out for quite a while. And then there was just a day when I was vacuuming the floor and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Like maybe my differentiator and the reason why I could kind of grow out of where I'm at now into somewhere else is that I actually care because only someone who cares would show up every day for 2 years with or without pay, putting all the effort I am into it, putting all the care that I am into it. And after I had that moment, I got to work. I got to work building the Roseburg plug. And I had a couple of moments along the way where I was reminded that I'm on the right path. And that was through watching somebody else be seen,
Yeah.
asking them why they are doing what they're doing. And then the response I was getting was passionate, it was emotional, and in some cases completely relit their fire and reminded them why they even started doing it in the first place. And those moments really were the catalyst for me to be like, okay, I need to keep doing this because the world needs more of this.
Yeah.
And the people who are really passionate about what they're doing are the ones that I want to do business with. And I thought that was huge from every angle. So I mean that's kind of why I started it, just having those moments.
Well, that's what drew me to you. I mean, we met was at least a year ago, maybe two, right? It was at least a year ago.
Yeah, it's at least a year ago.
And I think you were just kind of really getting into the plug. The plug was just starting to catch traction. It'd been around for a little bit, but I think it was just really starting to get traction finally, right?
Yeah,
And I just thought, man, this guy's going to help some people. We're going to see some action here. It's going to be great.
yeah, yeah. A big part of that was meeting other people that had similar reasons for getting into what they're doing. So I ended up meeting this guy. His name is Joseph, and he runs the Roseburg receiver. And I think I reached out via message. Either he or I reached out, and we set up a meeting. And in the process of that meeting, I learned that the reason why he was doing what he was doing is he just genuinely cared about public safety and community awareness. And his name being so close to mine, the Roseburg plug, the Roseburg receiver, I just knew we had to team up.
Yeah.
Because it was not about money, it was not about ego. And when you combine forces like that, like how do you not grow?
It's just about bringing each other up.
Yeah,
When everybody has that goal in mind, how can you fail?
right. Yeah. So I mean that was a huge pivotal moment, I think, for both the brands. And ever since then we've just been climbing the ladder.
Yeah, I've been watching real close. You're doing a fantastic job.
Well, thank you. That's good to know. That's good to know because sometimes you just got to poke your head up and be like, "Are we good?"
Well, and even like outside of here, I do my Facebook thing and I meet people and stuff like that. And I've had at least 3 or 4 people be like, "Well, you need to go meet Shane." And
Yeah,
I'm like, "Yeah, you think so? I'll do that."
yeah, It's surprising to me the amount of people who know me when I walk in the room already, and it's not anything that I've ever really experienced. For most of my life, I've been in the area for my whole life, but I've been relatively isolated by myself,
Yeah.
and so it's a wild experience to go from almost isolation, a really small friend group of like 1 to 2 people at a time, to having a community support,
Yeah.
but I also think it's hugely beneficial. It's like having a giant family.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is. My dad told me, but I remember when he told me this when I was a little kid, maybe not a little kid, I was probably 13, 14 years old. He said, when you get old, when you get to be my age, you'll be really lucky if it takes more than one hand to count your friends. And until I started doing that, he was right. Couple of couple of friends, sometimes you fall apart for a couple of years and fall back together. Not very many. And
Yeah,
now, like you said, I've got these different little communities that, for whatever reason, love what I'm doing, that have welcomed me in despite anything else.
yeah.
And yeah, it's great. It's just awesome.
It changes everything.
It does.
It's a whole new world, and it'd be hard to go back. It'd be really, really difficult to go back. Like I don't even know how I could at this point.
Yeah, lonely for sure.
Yeah,
That's one of the things I worry about with this. And I see it a lot in the clowning world. A lot of the quote unquote professional clowns are older. And I think it's because through a lot of years of trying to struggle and strife and get by, I think you kind of realize that you need to do something bigger than yourself. But I hope that I can help spread this whole thing to more people, more young people.
yeah. I think it'll work. I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's all consistency. It's all you showing up.
Yeah.
You just keep showing up anywhere and everywhere you can. It's impossible not to grow.
Yeah.
It's impossible. It's just like we used to have a guy that was flipping the signs for
Yeah, I remember
Liberty
I
Tax.
went to college with him.
Yeah, well,
I remember seeing him when he started that. It was
he
amazing.
grew quite the following, right?
Yeah.
And it's just from people seeing him all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's like showing up is half the battle.
Well, not only that, but every time you'd see him, he was all in
Oh yeah, yeah,
every single time. It never failed. Big smile on his face, dancing like, ah,
yeah.
how could you
Going
not
woo.
appreciate that?
Yeah,
It was incredible. Yeah. I wonder what he's doing.
yeah, yeah. It makes you wonder what he's up to these days. I haven't
Right.
seen him in a while.
Yeah, I worry about losing my ability to do this, but I think play is easy enough. It doesn't matter how much I hurt as I get older. I think I'll still be able to play.
Right. It's good that you can stay that mobile.
Yeah.
Going to the events and doing stuff like this.
Yeah. My first big event is this coming weekend. Going down to the Cave Junction to do Spring Awakening, which is a big music festival. They got some great bands.
Okay.
And they pretty much gave me free reign of they call it the Little Sprouts area,
Hmm.
kind of the family section. I'm really looking forward to it. I've got some ideas, some experiments that I want to try and see what happens.
That'll be cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Been busy working all week trying to get my bus ready because my wife's coming and she's handicapped. So I got to have the right space for her.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's going to be good. Even with that, though, things are falling into place that I just wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
Trying to get the bus going and ready for her. And I just happened to come across somebody who's a fabricator. So now he's building a rack on the back of my bus so that we can take her wheelchair and stuff like that. It's like just happened.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Happened when I needed it.
That's how you know you're on the right track. Really. You're like, whoa. It's like the first time things are going right all of a sudden. What's going on?
Yeah.
Or waiting for the cliff.
Yeah.
Waiting for the fall off. But
Yeah. That other shoe's somewhere around. Well, hopefully not. Like you said, if anything any of my beliefs about being here to experience and if that's the case and you're really doing your best to experience life,
Yeah.
maybe it'll just work out.
I mean, I think part of it really is intention. Like, what are your intentions behind what you're doing? I think that has a big part to play in it, 'cause not everybody's got the best intentions in business or entertainment, and I think having those good intentions, people see it.
Yeah.
People see it when you speak, they see it in what you do, and it shows throughout your entire brand, and it's becoming more and more valuable to have that kind of authentic thing going on, especially with all the AI and everything's generated. It's like trust at an all-time low.
Yeah,
So
for
if
sure.
you're providing trust, with your brand, I think that's just huge these days.
Boy, I tell you, that whole AI thing, that's another one of those where I'm seriously torn by it,
Yeah.
especially in the creative world, the artist world, it's like everybody's like, no AI, no AI, no AI. But, and I understand that. Let's not create art with AI. Let's not, you know, write our stories using AI. But there's a lot of things that it can help with that aren't the art side, but still advance the art
Yeah.
that I think people are kind of missing out on.
Yeah.
For me, I'm kind of ADD. I get scattered a lot. Never been really confident in my writing skill. AI helps keep me on track with that. And it doesn't do the writing for me, but it helps guide what I'm trying to say. It helps maybe put it into a little bit better wording or
Right. It's almost like being able to express yourself in a better kind of way.
yeah,
I wouldn't ever use AI to put out something that's like not true or something that I truly didn't feel was me
right,
saying it, but it helps guide my thoughts. And sometimes that could be just in the form of a question. Like
right.
I could say something to it, it'll give me a question, and I'm like, oh yeah, good point. Okay, that just unlocked this whole other level for me, just that one question. And I know, like, no human would have asked me that question for the most part. So it's like having this tool that's available to pick my own brain. It's an unlock for myself.
Well, and I think it's gonna, a lot of people are like, well, it's just another thing. I think that AI is on par with the printing press. I think it's going to change the world that much.
Yeah,
And I think it's going to bring us into an enlightenment period where a lot of people will have more time to be creative and whatever their way of creativity
oh
is.
yeah, yeah,
And I think we're really going to see a period of time where people are just really looking for that human creativity, that
yeah.
human
I think it's
connections.
going to raise the value of human.
And we're going to have a little bit more time to enjoy it.
Right. Yeah.
You know, at least I hope.
Yeah, yeah, that's the hope. That's the hopeful way of looking at it, and that it improves the energy that it takes to use AI.
I think we're going to put it in space. Well, what I'm saying is these data centers, I think they're going to start putting them in space
Oh,
because you think
interesting.
about it, they're using all this water to keep everything cool. Well, space is cold.
Yeah,
You don't got to worry about that in space. Talk about all this energy that we're using, that our resources, whether it's gas or coal or dams, whatever, we're trying to generate the energy to run these places. Well, you got the sun,
yeah,
and it's not limited by clouds or anything. So why not put it in space?
right. Yeah, interesting point. Never thought of that. Okay. Wow. So another topic of discussion, what are you offering?
Well, I like to call myself a festival clown or a fair clown. I do a lot of like street busking, the kind of performance where you just kind of stumble across. I'm not really too interested in doing little kids' birthday parties, especially not private birthday parties. I might do something like that, in a public park or something like that, where if somebody else is around, they can come play too. I don't really like the idea of somebody paying to have me to themselves.
Yeah, you can't be bought.
I don't like that
Just kidding.
idea. So the whole thing
Yeah,
about personal birthdays is a little bit.
yeah,
And one of the things, having worked with the North Douglas County Fair and some of the other fairs and festivals I've been involved with over the years, they do a lot of short entertaining. So they'll have their bands and they'll pay good money for bands, which is fine and great and everything. But that's like an hour, maybe two.
Yeah.
And maybe not everybody's interested in that particular band. So what do they do in the meantime? And then you got this whole other crowd of people that they're curious. They want to be involved. They're shy. They're not sure how to connect. I feel like I'm the guy that helps invite them in, gives them a little bit of connection with maybe a few other people that are playing with the toys, doing whatever it is they're doing, telling me their story or me telling them a story or whatever. It's that invitation in
Yeah.
that allows people to really come and say, okay, now I feel like I belong here
Yeah.
at this festival, at this fair, at this craft market, whatever it might be.
Right.
Plus, I feel like another thing I do is people stay longer.
Oh, yeah.
I do been to quite a few of these different street markets. Well, the Halloween one that they had here in Roseburg last year,
Hmm.
and people started interacting with me, and I don't know, it gives them a little bit of energy. Now they're going to go shop a little bit more. Maybe it keeps their kids busy while they're doing a little bit more shopping, or while they will go and pay attention to the band for a little while, or whatever. So that's kind of what I do. Is like I'm kind of like a middleman between realities, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
One of the events that I'm getting called for, I don't want to give away too much, but it's a fantasy event.
Okay.
And as a clown, maybe I don't really fit into this fantasy world that they're trying to create,
Hmm.
but I always kind of lived on that line of those fantasies anyway.
Yeah.
So it's really easy for me to help somebody come from outside of that fantasy world and bring them in, invite them in,
Yeah.
show them what's up
Right.
here in this realm enough and in that realm enough that I can help people across kind of deal.
Yeah. That makes sense. You're being like a bridge, through novelty, if
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's hard to sell that. It's one of
Yeah.
the things I'm kind of struggling with, is how do you put that into words? Because when you're selling the product, any product, it doesn't matter what the product is, you're telling people what you're solving for, basically. And it's kind of hard to put that into words. I'm solving for your customers that don't know how to get involved.
Yeah.
Well, no, they're coming to my festival. They're involved.
Right.
That's not always the case.
You're also creating memorable moments.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's probably quite a few occasions where like people are always going to remember an interaction
God,
you
I
had
hope
with
so.
them at an event. Like they might not even remember the rest of the event, but they remember that a clown walked up to him and made him smile,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's those little ripples.
Yeah. Just little ripples. That's why you're called ripples because you're making little ripples throughout
Yeah.
throughout people's lives, really.
Yeah. Where there is no pebble tossed and there is no wind to blow.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're the only one doing this in the area. I haven't seen any other performers doing anything like this.
Yeah, there's quite a few clowns around. But the thing that I'm noticing about a lot of them is they're specializing. And sometimes it's not in a very good way. They'll clown for their group of friends, and so their whole focus goes to whatever their friends are into.
Yeah.
A lot of times that's protest, that's partying, that's not really bigger than you. That's just your little shell that you're clowning for.
Yeah.
And so we are kind of lacking those bigger clown moments that are people that are there for everybody, there to really help the world, which is kind of what I'm hoping I can do in some little way. I've seen, especially up in Portland, there's a bunch of clowns up in Portland, but then they show up at these ICE protests and
Yeah.
not that they don't have a right, not that clowns aren't supposed to do those kind of things, because I think they are. But I don't know if that's just who you are as a clown. Doesn't
Right.
doesn't sit right.
Yeah.
I think I you know kind of talking the politics thing. I hope that I never let my political bias slip
Right.
in anything I do as a clown. I don't ever want any of my whatever my bias might be. I'm sure there's some of it I can recognize, some of it I don't recognize as bias. I don't ever want that to show through. And I don't ever want anybody with whatever their biases are to feel like they're separate because of their bias. What I think I should do as far as politics go is I should point out a bigger picture of what's maybe going wrong with the whole thing.
Yeah.
So despite party, despite anything else, this is what's wrong with the way it's set up, maybe, or this is what's wrong with, and it's a fine line. So I tend to not touch it,
Yeah.
but occasionally I do. You
Yeah.
know, occasionally
I mean,
I don't think we should be hurting people for any reason.
and that's the problem with it. I mean, that's the biggest problem with it. Whether your beliefs are whatever side.
Well, like for example, and I don't think I'll cross the line with this, but for example, we'll go back to the Vietnam War. Okay. This is a war that we now know we should not have ever been in. And a lot of people knew then that we should not have been there. And they protested that we shouldn't be there. Everything's good at this point. The problem that I have with it is when they were spitting on the soldiers who were coming home from serving. That that's where I draw a line because here you're saying we're hurting too many people, but then you're hurting the people that were forced to do it. That that was horrible to me.
Yeah.
You know, go out and protest the Vietnam War by all means. Don't spit on, don't harm the poor guys that are coming home from being in that mess.
Yeah. 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 I don't think you have to be on a certain side. I mean, there's just a certain like level of morals, or just like,
And they think they're doing right. They think, well, we're protesting. It's our right. Yes, it is.
yeah.
Please do it. Just don't hurt anybody doing it.
Yeah. There's usually a line that ends up being crossed, and it really just doesn't matter what side you're on. You cross the line. I mean, someone's going to call you an idiot because you have one opinion that they don't agree with. And that now you're just an idiot for every other thing that you think too. And that's just simply not how the world works. That's not
Yeah.
how people work,
Yeah. I don't know. I like America and I like the fact that I get to be a clown.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Oh, that's amazing. So Ripples, how can people reach you?
My Facebook page, just look up Ripples the Clown. I've got a website, ripplestheclown.com. Pretty simple.
Okay.
Getting on Instagram now finally. So Ripples Insta.
All right.
Pretty simple. Hopefully you can find me at events all over Oregon. The Cave Junction this weekend. Pretty sure I'm going to be at Bohemia Mining Days. I'll be up in Lebanon later in the year. So hopefully you'll see me around. Hopefully I'll get some more events besides that.
Yeah.
Go other places.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you everybody who was listening or watching, and stay tuned for the next episode of The Outlet. Take care.